Welcome to StabtheDragon Productions for the Canadian Whiskey Tournament. It is March 29th, 2025, and I'm coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas. I've been studying 5 basic Canadian blends that are all hugely popular, reviewing them and then conducting some blind one-on-one competition. The 5 whiskeys I've been checking out: Crown Royal, Canadian Club 1858, Seagram's VO, Canadian Mist, and Black Velvet. So let's review tonight's contestants. First of all, Canadian Club 1858. Hiram Walker started this brand. He began distilling in Detroit in 1858, but had to move across the river into Canada because Detroit was already experimenting with prohibition in the 1850s. Walker made a whiskey that became known as the Club Whiskey because it was so good he marketed it to only the best hotels and fancy clubs. He built such a successful operation that American whiskey producers complained, and so Congress had to pass a law requiring whiskey coming from Canada to state that it was Canadian. And so the Club Whiskey became Canadian Club Whiskey. So there you go. Congress helped set up that transaction. And today in 2025, with the Trump presidency, there is still ongoing battles with Canada over whiskey. This 80 proof blend costs about $11 to $13 for a 750 milliliter bottle here in Fort Worth. I get flavor notes of maple syrup, leather, tobacco, some wood notes in there, making it one of my favorites. It is a no age stated whiskey, so the youngest whiskey in here is 3, but there's much older whiskeys as well. Now, a part of the Jim Beam brands, it is owned by Suntory, a Japanese company, but is still distilled in Windsor, Ontario. In this tournament, Canadian Club defeated Canadian Mist in the first round. And the next contestant, Seagram's VO. Notice on the label, Seagram's VO Canadian whiskey, a blend, product of Canada, Canada's finest, imported. It seems like the bottle is making a point here. In 1917, Seagram's VO was released in honor of Joseph Seagram's, the owner, his son Thomas's wedding. VO at that time was a 10-year-old rye blend and became their biggest seller. Nobody today really knows what the VO stands for. It may be very old, it may be very own. The whiskey comes in at 40% ABV, 80 proof, with no age stated. And so its cost is $19.95 in December of 2024 here in Fort Worth. It is presently owned by Sazerac, and VO is still produced at the Diageo Valleyfield Distillery outside of Montreal, but bottled in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's Canadian whiskey owned by Sazerac, produced at a Diageo distillery. None of this is making sense. Already in this tournament, though, Seagram's defeated Crown Royal in round 1. Now, my contest rules. While I do look at the history and the bottles, the label, the marketing, the determining factor in the contest will be taste, drinkability. If I was offered these 2 whiskeys 5 nights in a row, which would I choose? 3 out of those 5 nights. In case of a tie, the cost, value, and availability will break the tie. Along the way, just for fun, I try to guess which whiskey is in which glass, because I've got them in Black Duck Glencairns and I've mixed them up. Glass number 1 is Canadian Club. Glass number 2, Seagram's VO. On to the contest. Now, considering the history of both of these whiskeys, I've evaluated that to be a tie between the 2. Bottle, label, and marketing. I think VO's got the best looking bottle and label. Some would call it perhaps gaudy or gauche, but I think I like it. And I like the dark glass on both bottles. I'm a sucker for dark glass. But I think the label on the Seagram's really wins the day. But probably Canadian Club has the best market availability, I would think. But the bottle label marketing, I'll give that to VO. Now let's nose these whiskeys. I'll start left to right, but again, I don't know which is which. Just a vague sweetness. I have some difficulty smelling whiskeys, particularly bourbons or Canadian whiskeys. Just nothing for real, just some vague sweetness there. Whiskey on my right, similar. I really can't smell anything. All right, both of these whiskeys are 80 proof, so I will just start with the one on the left for taste. So for nosing, that's going to be a tie. All right, let's taste. Getting some of the sweetness, some of the leather and tobacco notes. So my initial take on that is that is Canadian Club. I don't recall getting those kind of notes with the VO. Gotta cleanse my palate with some Topo Chico. All right, this first glass on the left was good. I think it may have been the Canadian Club. If so, it had a number 1 on the bottom. But I was getting those tobacco, chocolate, leather notes, the wood. So now let's try the one on the right. There I'm getting a lot of corn sweetness, and that's the hallmark of VO. So I'm really thinking that's glass number 2 and the VO. Now they're both good. I think the Canadian whiskeys don't get much respect from the whiskey community in general, but I really like them. You know, they're not going to be my favorite, but I like them. So I'm going to taste these one more time to make sure. This time I'll start with the one on the right. Yeah, I'm definitely getting the corn sweetness, that kind of the taste profile that I get from VO. So I think that was glass number 2. There I'm getting, I see that time, because I drank that second, that altered the flavor profile a little bit, but I think I'm still getting some wood from that, and hints of, even a little bit of hints of maple, I think, with that. So I'm thinking that's the Canadian Club 1858. So let me just proclaim the one on my left is the one I favor. I think it's glass number 1. And it is. And glass number 2, the VO. All right, so we have a winner right here. Canadian Club 1858. It wins on the taste. The mouthfeel, burn, and finish on both of these is really pretty close. They're both 80 proof, so there really wasn't much of a difference there. The finish may have been a little bit actually better with the Canadian club, but it was pretty too close. So it's really simply on taste, we've got the winner, and that's how it should be. You know, which one do I like the most? And so we have Canadian Club 1858, which is going to now be in the championship round. What happens with the VO is the challenger is Black Velvet. So we'll put Black Velvet up against VO, and then the winner of that match will have a final match against the Canadian Club. So right now, let's do a cocktail with the Canadian Club. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. I've made a Canadian Old Fashioned, and what I've done is, instead of simple syrup or sugar cube, I use genuine maple syrup, and just a little bit. I don't like my Old Fashions overly sweet. A couple of drops of Angostura bitters, some orange peel, and a couple of dark cherries in there. My wife has sampled this and says it was very good. And I gotta say that the maple syrup with the Canadian Club in an Old Fashioned absolutely works. So far in this tournament, Crown Royal, the #1 best-selling Canadian whiskey in the world and the United States, lost every match. And that shocked me. I really thought Crown would probably come in second place, because I was just thinking for what I like to drink, the Canadian Club was going to win it, but I thought Crown would be second. But they lost the first round to VO. And then they lost again to Canadian Mist. And then they lost another time to Black Velvet. So Crown comes out as being the weakest Canadian whiskey for me. I don't know. I mean, it's popular, but I like it. It's okay. But in this tournament, it came in dead last. Canadian Mist got beat by both Canadian Club and Black Velvet, but they did successfully beat Crown. VO was once upon a time the best whiskey sold in America by Canada, and it defeated Crown Royal in the first blind test. But now it has lost the second round to Canadian Club. So Canadian Club has won both of its matches. It is now #1, but it's going to have to face the winner of Black Velvet versus VO. So Black Velvet's going to be the challenger, and it will work its way all the way up, and so it takes on VO next time. Well, this is Stab the Dragon, out here.